Hello, Jennifer. Thank you so much for hopping on. I'm so grateful for your time.
Hi, how are you doing this morning?
I am great. Probably a little bit more well rested than you. You guys, Jennifer works crazy hard and she did not get much sleep tonight. So extra thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I am coffeeed up. It's Midwife's magic potion.
I love it. You guys, a little bit about Jennifer. She is somebody so near and dear to my heart. Jennifer Argueta is a clear, I would say she's a midwife by calling. It's not just a job for her, I would say it's a calling. She is a mom of five. She was also a midwife for the birth of my first son and really shepherded me through that so beautifully because I came to her with so many anxieties and I was just a nervous wreck about birth in general. And I truly left the first appointment with her feeling like I trusted her, but I also trusted myself. And she changed the game for me. She's somebody that I look to for advice to this day. And I think that, well, I don't know. I need to actually introduce you. I'm sorry. I'm like getting into like, she really is just somebody so special to me. But she has over a decade of experience, maybe even more of that at this point. I don't know. Jennifer, I just think you're like experienced up. But she does across hospital, birth center, and home birth settings. And she's the founder of College Park Home Birth. And so she serves families kind of all throughout Maryland, DC, Virginia areas, and just has like a really deep trust in physiologic birth and also knows how to step in when needed. So, did I miss anything, Jennifer? I'm sure I did.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're doing good.
Okay, cool. So I would say, I would venture to guess, Jennifer, that I was not the first time mom who was nervous about birth. So I'd like to ask you right out of the gate, what is one thing that you think women commonly fear about birth that you believe can end up being one of their greatest strengths?
Yeah, so I think the biggest fear that we hear, even overall, because each individual is going to have something that they want to pinpoint as like, I'm really afraid of the pain, or I'm really afraid if, what if something goes wrong? I'm afraid if I can do
Mm-hmm.
this. I think it's most women just overall, especially with the first baby, fear the process, and really just like bringing it back and honoring the fact that a woman's body can grow a baby. So we can bake and birth our babies, and bringing that back to us and not putting that expectation into somebody else's hands, like, well, you can take care of me to make sure that all these things happen. Women have an intrinsic sense and an intrinsic ability to do these things, to grow a baby healthfully and to birth their baby. And I think that's where it starts. It's just like almost a fear, but almost an ingrained over the last couple generations that like, this is something you should be afraid of. This is something that you need to be helped with and not
Mm-hmm.
supported with, right? I think, especially in the US, women want to be helped with everything, or they're told that they need help
Yeah.
when they really need just
Yeah.
support and guidance.
Yeah. Totally. I honestly would say that that's exactly what you helped me feel because I came to you. So I first started at a hospital and I just kind of left feeling like, okay, something's off. And then I tried a birth center and then I was like, okay, something's off. And every single time I left those appointments, I just felt nervous about pregnancy and I felt nervous about having a baby. And even when I asked questions, I just felt nervous.
Yeah.
And then after my appointment with you, we talked and you answered a lot of questions. And that was the first time that I felt like, okay, yeah, I guess I am made to do this, and everything is going to be fine, and she is going to help me do this, but my body's going to do most of it, and I think that that's so important. Are there any like patterns that you've noticed just in your experience of things that help women labor smoothly, whether it's physically or emotionally or spiritually or all of the above? Like, what are some patterns that you've noticed help labor women smoothly?
Yeah, I think women prenatally confronting what their biggest worry is about their process and really
Mm.
honoring that, reflecting upon it. Because if you talk to enough midwives or medical professionals or doulas or birth support, we don't want self-fulfilling prophecies. What we want to do is really kind of take the bull by the horns and say, hey, this is something that makes me nervous, and really work through that prenatally. I see a lot of success. staying active, staying fit, and not sitting in a box of, well, this is how much weight women should gain and this is what you should do, but really looking at what your health is and how can you maintain that health aspect, and are you feeling good? Are you doing good? I think we ignore that and we look at numbers a lot. And numbers are important. It's that fine mesh. Like God has gifted us the opportunity, right, to be able to honor physiology, but also integrate the evidence that we've learned, the scientific backings, evidence-based care, but meshing that together and not just only relying on numbers, but trusting physiology and trusting yourself. Like, am I doing good? Am I feeling good? I think is a pivotal point. And then in success, surrounding yourself with people who are supporting what your goals are, regardless of what those goals are. But birth is a very intimate process, and it's very similar to how a baby is made is how they're born. And so you want to feel comfortable and confident with yourself and surround yourself with people, be it your partner or your friends or your family or your providers. You want to feel comforted and loved, and that people are there to support you and kind of maintain that pillar of support throughout the process. I think is a really impactful way to help women give birth well.
That's really good. Wait, what are your thoughts on like social media? Because I feel like that can be a great tool, but it can also be like a first-time mom's worst nightmare, because the algorithm really quickly picks up on the fact that you're pregnant, and it just like throws fear-based stuff that you're going to be kept up all night thinking about. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it can go down a deep rabbit hole quickly, and it's not uncommon that within prenatal visits, I will say, hey, we're going to talk about this, or this has come up in your pregnancy. I want you to be very cautious about like looking these things up or Googling them, and you can. And we really talk about kind of what you can expect, the full plethora, because you'll have people that on social media will say, oh no, this is totally fine. And that can really, if there's a pretty large complication, that can really impact how women are perceiving or really thinking through their informed decision-making process. But it could also be that they're then fear-mongered. So kind of what I try to do as a midwife is kind of cross all of those and encourage research, but know that everybody's story is their own. And just because one person experienced one thing doesn't necessarily mean that your journey would take that path for the good or bad. Right. But you can pull from it. So I think it's a tool that can be used, but it has to be used very cautiously. It's great. And even in my consults, I talk about, well, we can do Instagram births with twinkle lights and fairies, but when it comes down to it, birth is beautiful upon reflection and how it made you feel during the process, and not necessarily that it felt great when you were doing, or it felt beautiful, or things like that.
Yeah. Totally. Gosh, yeah, that's so good. I feel like that brings up another point. I feel like there's this pressure that like, okay, well, you've got to have the twinkle lights and the this and the that, and that is so not the important thing. It goes back to, I think, what you said a couple minutes ago about just like having those conversations ahead of time so that you can just get it off your chest. If it's something you're worrying about, talking to your provider about it, getting it off your chest, and then seeing in most cases that it's really not something to be worried about. So then when you do get to kind of like game time, that's what I think of it as. I literally think labor is the most athletic thing ever on earth. You've already had those conversations. What about, like, what would you say if somebody's with maybe a provider, I don't know whether they're in like hospital, birth center, home birth. Well, home birth, that's an easy thing. Like, okay, just switch. But what if they don't feel like they can have open dialogue with whoever is walking them through their pregnancy and labor prep?
Yeah, and it is a big point, right? Hospitals and birth centers are often insurance-based. The providers might want to answer those questions and really work that with you. But an insurance-based system makes it very difficult for the providers to take the time and attention that they need to really kind of walk you through those worries or concerns, or kind of how they do things on the regular type thing. And so especially for first-time families, it is worth its weight in gold to have somebody in your corner that has experienced it in the setting that you're choosing to have your baby. So in our practice, we ask that all of our first-time families have doulas. And so doulas are those physical and emotional birth support. I love a doula who wants to walk that pregnancy journey with you, so does check-ins for the prenatal course, because the prep work leading up to birth, I think, has a significant impact on your confidence and capacity to have a positive birth, regardless of where you choose to do that. And so a doula who's experienced in working with women throughout their pregnancy and birth processes can answer those questions, or can
Yeah.
help you curate a list to shorten that when you go to your OB or your midwife, to really say, hey, these are things that I've worried about. How do you manage these? And can give you a broader idea. Modern women, we're educated. We want to know answers. We want to ask questions. And sometimes we need a reliable source for that. And somebody who has looked at all of those sources, compress that, and is able to give you kind of the answers, or give you the direction to find those answers yourself. And I think that builds a lot of confidence. And specifically, there is research that tells us that having a doula as part of your birth team does decrease the likelihood for intervention, and decreases the likelihood for cesarean section, those type of things. And it is a true investment. And I have this talk often. It is a true investment, but it's really, it is worth its weight in gold. And we see our first time families really thrive with having that additional support, especially if, our husbands are, having a hard time seeing their wife in labor. It's intense.
Yeah.
It can be uncomfortable. It can really be hard for families to see their loved ones really working hard for their goals, and to have somebody that's seen it and done it before just be there to literally or figuratively hold your hand through it is really important.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. And I think that it's almost more important for, the husband or partner to have that doula support, right? Because they're sort of like, wait a second, what do I do? How do I support? And I feel like a lot of times a doula is able to step in and walk them through, okay, here's what's going on. Because I think that's a good point, that it's oftentimes, the mom has done all the research and kind of has that intuition going on, but then the dad's sort of like, wait, what do I do? And a doula can really help there too. It's almost just like more of an investment for dad than it is for mom in some ways. But that's great. So I guess specific to home births, Jennifer, something that I got and get a lot whenever I'm like, oh yeah, my first with a home birth, is there's instant oh, wait, what? You did a home birth? Weren't you scared of an emergency? And I remember talking through those with you. I remember I grilled you on every possible, I'm a very much outward processor. So I grilled you on what if this, what if that, what if this? And I remember you answering just cool as a cucumber. Well, if this, then this. And something that you really helped me to understand and trust was that there were warning signs prior to emergencies that a good midwife is able to pick up on. And then nothing's really an emergency. You transfer to the hospital, but it's not like you're scrambling to get there per se. Can you dive into that a little bit more? Just pretend, I'm a first-time mom and I'm like, oh my gosh, Jennifer, I'd like to do a home birth, but what if there's an emergency? What would you say to that?
Right. So it's a double-layered approach. A home birth, we very much focus on the physiology of labor and birth and honoring a normal process. So one of the things that is vastly different than a hospital-based setting is that we tend not to start the sequela of intervention that can then snowball into the next emergency. So one of those, really the primary thing is just trusting the process and allowing for baby moms to labor and babies to be born with minimal or limited kind of intervention in the process will then decrease the likelihood of us having to continue intervention down the line. And that's as simple as, induction of labor with Pitocin is very common in a hospital-based setting, and it increases the likelihood for postpartum hemorrhage. We're not doing those things in a home birth setting. It doesn't mean that we don't have those medications, the same as the hospital, to be able to fix those issues or to correct them if they happen. But we watch for foreshadowings. We are monitoring baby. We're looking for wellness. And if there are hints, there's little, hey, Miss Jennifer, my heart rate blipped a little bit, or I'm not feeling so well and I might have a headache or something like that. There are little things that we don't want to ignore. We don't wait for all of the lights and sirens to go off in the big machines. We're watching women, we're listening to them, we're listening to their babies, and really trusting that we are so, midwives as a whole are trained in normal, and we are so inundated with normal that when something creeps outside of that, we see it, and we tend to see it early, and we react on that. And so we really minimize the likelihood of having these big storm transfers where it is chaotic, and fast moving. They typically tend to be very calm. Now, that doesn't mean we're immune from the chaos too, but it's few and far between, right? And for most home birth practices, the reasons that women, especially first-time moms, go to hospitals is typically for exhaustion, long labors, and they're tired, is going to be the most common reason. And so that's not a big emergency.
Right. Wow, that's so interesting. I didn't know that was like the most common reason for a transfer. Yeah, I do remember also being really amazed. I mean, I don't know. I think there's this misconception too that there are so many things that you're able to bring to someone's home in terms of just tools. You have like the most ginormous travel bag I've ever seen, full of all sorts of cool gadgets and things, right? And so it really is amazing how much of the hospital you can bring to the home in terms of just tools and things. But for somebody who might not really understand this like idea of cascade of interventions, can you explain that a little bit more about how oftentimes intervening with the process is sort of what leads to emergencies? Because I feel like we're usually told it's the other way around. It's like, oh, well, thank goodness, I didn't have a home birth because this happened. But really, we could, obviously, we can't point to causation, but there are so many things that lead to another thing, that lead to another thing. Can you kind of just explain that for like, I hate to use this word, but like for dummies?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a big example giver, so I think an example works well. A very common question that I get in consults with first-time families explicitly, or even first-time home birthers or those who are inquiring is, well, what happens if the baby's cord is around their neck? I heard that my cousin or my friend, like, they were in the hospital and the baby's heartbeat wasn't doing good, so we had to have an emergency C-section, and there was a cord around the neck. And so obviously, like in a home birth setting, that would be really problematic because you're not unable to correct that. And give or take, around 50% of babies have umbilical cords around their neck. And so we debunk a lot of myths associated with those type of things. So in a visit, I might just blatantly state, babies don't breathe through their lungs; they're breathing through their umbilical cord. So us as air breathers, right, feel like, oh, something around our neck is very constricting and potentially not letting us breathe. But our babies in utero are breathing in a very different way, right? They're getting nourished through the umbilical cord. They're not air breathers quite yet. So that is one of the things. But then also, it's very easy within a hospital-based setting to if there's an emergency, to be able to pinpoint something that's visible and say, hey, well, no, we did the C-section because of the cord, but why did we start the induction, right? That's the question. Yeah. Oh, well, there's one research study that OBs tend to very much like. It's called the ARRIVE trial, that says, well, we could maybe decrease the likelihood of you having a C-section, which a lot of women are trying to avoid, if we do an induction by 39 weeks. Well, maybe this baby was not in a great position at 39 weeks with a cord around their neck, and they needed an extra few days to be able to rotate into a position that made labor easier, right? But instead, what we did is started medications that overrode the maternal fetal hormonal cascade, like the normal cascade that occurs in labor between the mom and baby communicating. Their bodies are communicating, saying, hey, let's do labor, right? And and the mom's body is releasing oxytocin and other hormones to bring contractions on. Doing an induction, starting Pitocin in the hospital, interrupts that cascade and overpowers it. So then we get faster contractions and we get stronger contractions. And because in the hospital, we often will want contractions to be 2 minutes apart for this long. But what if your baby is telling you that they can do really well with 4 to 5 minute contractions, because that allows them time to compensate and to be able to manage labor, because labor is stressful, and it's often a very good stress for mom and baby. It's good for long-term development on babies, and we see that in research that babies who have labored do better, right? Overall, they've started this hormonal cascade. So if we are overpowering it, we're not then listening to our bodies or listening to our babies for them to give that biofeedback to say, hey, we have to slow this down so I can be born safely. What we do instead is continue that cascade of heavy hormone influx that then potentially will tax your baby and cause too many contractions for what your body or your baby could handle. And then we have a C-section. And then we say, oh, well, it must have been because of the cortisol. Right? Versus, we had a beautiful baby who just needed a little bit of time last night, even with one cord around her neck. And we said, well, something's holding her up to have her time coming down. And she come very far down and go way back up and very far down. And her heartbeat did well with it the whole time. And we're not keeping her down and saying, no, you have to push harder and stressing her. We're letting her recover. And then she was born beautifully and happily right at home, right? So just honoring that process. So I think sometimes we do that sequela. So that's a long sequela for dummies, but.
No, that was so good. And it made me get like a little bit emotional because you talking is just bringing me right back. So I feel like I'm in like a funny position because I had a home birth first and it was so uncomplicated and it was so beautiful. And then I had this wacky, not going into it, but like a hospital experience. And you guys, I truly, right, like no judgment zone, but a home birth for the mom and the baby just is so much more respectful. That's like the word that comes to my mind. I mean, right, like if you were like a really prominent OBGYN who has transitioned now into midwifery care, Dr. Stu Fishbein, he had this great imagery of like, okay, look, if you had a dog who was about to give birth to a bunch of pups and your kids were running around like crazy and like, bothering the dog who was laboring, like you would probably tell the children, hey, you guys, like let's be quiet, let's give the dog some space. But for women in a hospital setting, I mean, Jennifer, like you and my doula and everybody, when I was having Russell at home, it was pure joy and excitement, and everybody was believing in me and everybody was encouraging me, and it was affirming and it was peaceful and it was aware. I mean, you were on it. I remember being in like focused on labor, but knowing, oh wow, okay, Jennifer's checking his heartbeat right now, Jennifer's doing this, like just being aware of that. There was so much vigilance and care, but it was so respectful and it was so just excited to meet a baby. Whereas in the hospital, it was like very serious, very to the point. I was interrupted all the time. It was not respecting the process whatsoever. And I mean, I say this with all due respect because I love doctors. But it was just such a more serious and hurried and rushed process. It's just amazing to me experiencing both that, you can, like what you were just saying with the home birth you had last night, right? Like you just allowed the baby to like get a little bit of recovery time and you allowed the mom to just sort of like do what she needed to do. And it's just so, gosh, it's just so much better. I don't know how to be unbiased about it. But there are still a lot of fears that come to, you know what, actually, I would love to ask you if I were flipped, right? So if a mom, this probably comes to you a lot, if a mom wants a home birth, but she had a previous, pretty traumatic or like a highly managed hospital birth, what are some things that you would say to her, or some steps that she can take mentally to like get right to make a transition into a home birth? Because they are very different, right? So she's had trauma or she's had a highly managed hospital birth, she wants a home birth. How are you going to help her bridge that gap?
Yeah. So we often will bridge that gap just by saying, what are you looking for out of this? Why are we not going back to that highly managed hospital birth? And a lot of time it stems from trauma, or it can stem from confidence that, I did this and I want to do it different. And so we talk about that. And I tend to instill probably a lot of confidence in women who are like, but I've had an epidural before, or I did these things, or I needed an induction. And we start to rewrite that. We reframe that dialogue. You needed an induction. That doesn't mean your body was a failure. That means the circumstances of your last pregnancy required it, or that's kind of the trajectory that it took. It doesn't mean that your body can't do it and won't. And so we work through some of kind of those demons as they arrive during the pregnancy course. And we'll have women that come on for like a consultation with me and say, well, I'm not sure if I could even do it. And the really lovely thing is that labor is always different, but it's very consistent. And labor for women will typically push them to their limit of what they thought they could do, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically, right? They're going to get to that upper level of tiredness and fatigue. And it doesn't matter if you have a 2-hour labor or 20-hour labor or more. We get to that point of just feeling utterly exhausted, and can they do that? And the really nice thing is, if we've had a baby before, it tends to just be that much smoother and that much faster. And we have that confidence that we've done it before, so we can do it again. And so I actually do. I tell women, I say, if you've pushed out a baby before, epidural, induction, or otherwise, by the time you can't do it anymore, your baby's coming. And that's where your husband, doula, birth support team, me, are there to just rile with you and let you own that power, right? Let the women own their power at that point. So I bring that confidence that you depend, like we've had women that were in the hospital, they depended on their birth team, and maybe it went the way they wanted it, or maybe it didn't. But we build that relationship prenatally to know that we're your team and we are invested in your care. And I, as a midwife, will reciprocate the effort that my family's put in to their goals for home birth. And so we'll do it together. So when it gets hard, you can lean into us, and we're there to support what your goals have been. You might forget them. Like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. This is really tough. And I'm like, but you really wanted that beautiful water birth. Why don't you get in the tub and have that baby, right? We remind women of that when sometimes we forget.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. What about for a dad? So kind of the same situation, but maybe the dad is the one who's super nervous about a home birth, because I see that a lot too. Like, I'll be talking with, a mom on the playground. Oh, I wanted a home birth, but my husband wasn't comfortable with that. And I don't blame them. I mean, Drew looked at me like deer in the headlights. You want a what? When I first asked him, but he came around. What do you say to a dad who's super nervous about going the home birth route?
Well, I have some dad questions that we usually answer, and some of them are specific to like where your home birth midwife is practicing, which state, and things like that. But my quick response to that, and I usually bring this up, is that I ask dads to because most of our husbands, most partners are not researching it like the person who's pregnant and giving birth. They're not really looking into it and have like really filtered through a lot of this, and some of them have, which is phenomenal. But what I do ask them when their wives give them this crazy idea of having a home birth, right? I ask the partners, I say, you might not understand the drive for it, but what I ask of you is to explore, talk, and trust your partner in the fact of what their intention is. I will say something typically like, you might think this is crazy, but do you trust your wife or your partner to make a decision that feels right, and she would not ever intentionally put herself or your baby in undue danger, right? Trust that research and that partner and the person that you're building a family with, and we will win you on the back end. If that makes sense. We have the baby, and then, I'm sure Drew was the same. I remember it like, oh, this was the greatest thing ever. Why did it, we build it afterwards, because there can be scares. We've been ingrained in the society to fear birth, and dads fear it too. And they often don't do the research as heavily as the person who's giving birth, but to really trust their partner, to know that they are making decisions that feel safe, that feel right, that make them feel confident, and will build the family's confidence as new parents, right? So really just trust, putting that trust in the person that you've chosen to grow a family with, knowing that they wouldn't intentionally do something to hurt themselves or their baby. because I think the
Yeah.
biggest concern in home birth is it safe, right? Um,
Right.
so yeah, and I could ramble on the couple dad questions that are the big hitters. Um, but really the biggest thing is I always get asked, or I don't always get asked, but it's culminated in, well, this is great and nice. My wife wants to have this beautiful home birth, but how does everybody stay alive? Right? How do you
Right.
do that? And midwives are skilled and trained in community-based birth. Um, there's depending on the states, there's different regulations on medications and things, and skills or requirements for that midwife to maintain licensure. There are states in the U.S. that there is no licensure, that, and so women where they live need to explore kind of who the midwife options are, what are their skills and experience, and there are different midwives, and that doesn't mean different is less, right? But really exploring where their comfort level is and finding their midwifery match is kind of like what we call it. Finding somebody that
Hmm.
resonates and that you feel confident and comfortable with. Because if you're comfortable with your provider, then good things happen, right?
Yeah.
But I tend to tell the dads, I'm like, in our practice, we carry lots of medicines that we hope we never use, and we have fancy credentials like neonatal resuscitation and ACLS and basic life support. CPR, and typically we don't need them, but we know how to use them, right? We do drills and
Wow.
skill sessions, and so we have all the fancy tools and medicines, but we know how to use them, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, what we see of birth is most of our families have that confidence of like, hey, it was great to have people around. I felt like supported and I felt cared for, and I knew that they were checking in on mom and baby. But like, this is like the best job ever. They basically do nothing but drink coffee, and they
Yeah.
keep pushing. You're doing great. And there's a very rare circumstances that families see. There are very few families that see why we're actually there. And when we need to do
Right.
that, then we click in and we maintain as best we can the health and wellness of mom and baby, and we do it efficiently and we do it without panic, because that's no
Hmm.
good for anybody. We raise our kids for
Hmm.
not thinking right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I feel like a strength of yours is being just very, very calm and not chaotic under pressure, which I think is just so key to allowing that process to like keep unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that is so beautiful. It made me chuckle a little bit as you were explaining the dad thing. So, my favorite though, Jennifer, was winning my dad over. I don't know if you remember,
I
but
do.
so my parents were visiting from out of town for my home birth, and because they wanted to be there, whatever. But my dad is a like highly trained medical surgeon, and so I will never forget calling him and being like, "Hey, Dad, I want to have a home birth," and he like if Drew was deer in the headlights, my dad was deer in the headlights.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys, it is so funny. He is the biggest home birth
Yeah.
advocate ever. Like he'll call me and I'm like random people in my hometown know all about my home birth
Yeah.
because my dad's told them. And he's like he and then he also my parents also visited from out of town for my hospital birth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so hard for my dad, I think, to maintain composure and watch his face
Yeah.
because he was actually very angry
Yeah.
seeing how many times I was interrupted. Right? Because he had seen how peaceful and calm it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing the whole, quickly take the baby away, do this, blah, 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 lots of people in the room. And he was just, I remember he was just so gently like, you know, do we have to be putting that monitor on her like right now? Can we just like let her have a little bit of space? And I just think it's so beautiful, right? Like you let them have them trust the mom,
Mm-hmm.
and then you win them on the back end. And he is literally like just your biggest fan. And it's just such a blessing. It's something I'm so grateful for, actually. How can you tell? Because I know that it is a two-way street, right? Like, yes, we interview midwives to see who a fit is for us, but how do you tell? How can you tell that, like, you and a mom are going to be a good fit?
Yeah.
Like, what are some things that you look for? Because I mean, it is going to be a really, really strong relationship
Yeah.
after that to make sure that you're a good working partnership prior to birth.
Yeah. So I think I have it easy as a midwife. I feel like if we can have a good back and forth, like we can get somewhere with conversation, in terms of like learning one another. That's the biggest thing. And I will say, because midwifery is very central to my life, it's my calling. It's what I do. It's what I do day in and day out. And I just want to do it more. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I have found that women who are open, who want to ask questions. I want the hard patient, right? I want, in the hospital, it's like, oh, this mom always asks all these questions and has all of these, well, why would you want to do that? I want that person. I want the person that challenges me, asks questions on my recommendation. Well, why, Jennifer, do you want me drinking water during pregnancy? Right? Like, I want that
Right.
question. I want all of them, because I know that then the wheels are turning, and that we are going to have somebody who's going to take ownership over their health and well-being, and then ownership over their birth as well. And we see really good outcomes. So a lot of times I'll have women, and there are check marks in terms of home birth candidacy that we review in consults, but it's a quick list. I can run down that list. I'm like, hey, tell me about surgeries, tell me about medicines, tell me about your medical conditions. And women sometimes get fearful that they would be candidates for home birth. But I see the biggest reason that women are candidates for home birth, and then probably candidates for me, because if you want to have a home birth, we're probably going to match fairly well most of the time, because that's me. That's what I do. And it just makes me so excited to do it. And I remember talking to a mom postpartum, and she culminated the perfect phrase for the thing that clicked for me when we talked together on the consult. Is, you were like, well, what do you think I could do for having a home birth? And I was just rambling. She was like, do you think I'm a candidate? And I was like, the best home birth candidate is the one that wants to do it. Like, if you want to do it,
Yeah.
we can work with that, right? So somebody that has that drive and motivation is the person that's going to fit well with me. And if we were to look at all of the women and families that we serve, like I serve a vast population that's quite diverse, but we have one thing all in common, is we're home birthers. And even those moms that need to be in the hospital, they want to do it, right? And if you want to do it, we can work with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so good.
Motivation point. Yeah, no, it is. It's quite.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Okay, only because this is like literally, I feel like you're about to lift out of your chair. You get just so excited talking about it. No, it's so good. What is your favorite part about birth? Is that an impossible question for you? Because there's probably like 20 things.
Yeah, it's a pretty impossible question. I think kind of maybe the closest thing to like summarize it is that, like, we get to welcome miracles. Like, this is phenomenal. And sometimes we have hard goes and long labors and challenges, and it just makes that welcoming that baby ever so sweet, right? And my favorite thing about first time families, and that we continue to work hard to have first babies at home. You had a wonderful, straightforward birth first go around, is to see, like, you've been growing this baby for the better part of a year. They're here. You're expecting them. You're waiting for them. And it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in the hospital. You can be at a birth center. You could be at home. For a first-time family to meet their baby, it's like, I knew my baby, but I have a whole baby. Like, our family, our life has just shifted and has grown and blossomed. And it's just so good. It's so good to see. Just to be invited into such an intimate space, to welcome a human like that, to be part of that. It's just amazing for so many people. It is just really good.
That's so good. Yeah, no, I can tell it. It is, like I said, you're a midwife by calling. I guess, like, I'll make this my last question. What are like, can you just rattle off some things that we should know about if we are wanting to prepare for a home birth? Just like random things that might come to mind if I'm like, okay, Jennifer, I've decided I want to have a home birth. What do I do now? Right? Obviously we have our care team. We have this, we want to ask our questions and get things out in the open so that we're not fearful. But what else? Is there anything else we can do, like a checklist?
And we actually kind of curated a checklist since you've given birth for our first time families. We want you to stay fit, both emotionally and physically, right? Whatever your fitness is, and like work on it, improve it, focus on health. This is such a good time for change and for really having kind of a big focus on how to stay healthy. And I mean healthy by like honoring your body, nourishing it, moving, and staying balanced. I am huge on spinning babies and balance work and having women walk, right? Walking is a great exercise. But then also not, not discrediting, like doing body work, right? We have women going to chiropractics and prenatal massage. Aches and pains don't need to be occurring constantly in pregnancy. And honoring that, yeah, there are body changes, but we want to support those changes with stretches and movement and strength and also relaxation. So we have a lot of our clients doing physical therapy and chiropractic care and massage therapy, and really looking into having a doula. I would say those are our formulas, and finding something that's your match. A lot of people will rattle off different types of like childbirth education classes, and I have experienced all of them working really well if they work for you. So I say do the samplings, look at the different methodologies and what resonates with you, because whatever seems to resonate is going to work the best. So we have really great Bradley moms, and we have really great hypnobirthing moms, and we have really great Lamaze moms, and we have really great YouTube, Instagram, I'm going to read this up moms, right? So you just kind of, listen to who you are and how you learn and how you're going to build confidence and just do it.
Thank you. That's great. That is great. Well, guys listening, I hope you feel ready to research home birth. But really, Jennifer, I do love how like your positivity around it and your enthusiasm for welcoming a baby into the world is infectious. I'm like mirroring your smile over here, making me want to have another baby. For anybody wanting to get in touch with you or follow along with what you guys are doing, so I'm gonna link to College Park Home Birth website. Is there anywhere else we can reach out to? Like, what's best?
Yeah, so we have we're millennials for the most part over here, but we do have a Facebook page that's linked to our Instagram. So we actually just put up our stats post yesterday. Oh,
great.
That's kind of fun for 2025. So we had a nice bunch of babies, but also a very impactful post. So be aware of that. When you read, if you find it and read it, but a lot of people will read through that, and we try to, make some posts and some educational things and go through some of the fun stuff too. But
totally,
not super heavy active, but we're there.
Cool. I will link to all of those. But Jennifer, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, especially after a late delivery last night. Maybe actually probably this morning.
It was this morning. Yeah, we had a baby this morning.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day.